Southside 457.
Did you know that the Southside on Lamar is a National Historic Building?
This building tells a story.
I need a story to connect to with my heart.
There are so many stories in this building.
I wanted to teach other people how to naturally love themselves, and so I ventured into the field of opening my own spa.
There are people in this building with a passion to share what they know.
When I share my knowledge and my skills and my gift, I'm serving my purpose.
Preachers, teachers, architects, attorneys, engineers, artists of all kinds in this building.
What makes this place tick to me and makes it exciting is the combination of so many different kinds of people.
It's like a melting pot.
It's like a melting pot.
15 years, I've never regretted being here at Southside.
Welcome to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. Let's get it on. You can't miss the princess.
Listen, Linda, listen.
Southside 457.
Welcome back to the Southside 457 podcast. I'm your host, Walter Johnson Jr. And today we have with us the world famous fine artist, manager of the Janette Kennedy Gallery, Mrs. Jennifer Morgan. Miss Jennifer Morgan.
Hey, everybody.
Yay! How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, tell us a little bit about what you do. Okay, one of the first questions that I always ask everyone is, how'd you get to the Southside? Because you don't just show up here. You have some kind of invite, some kind of some kind of connection to the building, because it's not a place that you just show up. You know, like I was at the mall and I bumped into the store. It's not that kind of place. So how did you end up at the Southside, or how did you hear about Southside, and how did you end up being the manager of the Janette Kennedy Gallery? And can you just explain that?
Sure. About 22 years ago, I was working to make a transition from graphic design and a full-time job into fine art. So I was juggling a lot of things. And I had finished up school at North Texas in Denton, and I was looking to move closer to downtown. So one day I was apartment shopping and things like that, and I ran into an old friend at the gym. I decided to work out instead of sitting in traffic going back to North Dallas. And she told me she was at a luncheon with an artist that lived at Southside, and that at that time he could trade paintings for part of his rent. Okay. And I was like, that is not true. Like, that's unheard of. Yeah. And so, of course, the next day I walked in the office, and the building was pretty new at the time, just a few years. And the artist quarter at Southside has a lot of artists live workspaces with studios in the front and live spaces in the back. And it was pretty empty, but there was a few artists in those spots. And so I made a proposal, and they accepted me. So I came to Southside. That's cool. And got that really good deal. Unfortunately, it's not around anymore, but it really helped me make the transition from working a corporate job into going into art full time, and I haven't had to go back.
So some of the work around this building, you've done a lot of work, like in the artist quarters, the paintings, like the designs on the walls. Can you share, like, what is your work around here?
Sure. I have several murals, especially in the basement.
Mm-hmm. The artist quarters.
Well, yeah,
and the basement too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're two separate levels. So in the artist quarter, I've done some colorful designs along the walls that are a little more abstract, even though there's, one of a goat, a ram. And I've done a mural. The recent one is Bill Weisner. When he passed away, we did a memorial for him. And
Bill's Records and Tapes.
Yes, Bill Weisner, the great late great.
He was an interesting guy.
He was, and very beloved in the community, in the music community. And there was a lot of things left behind from his store, really cool, like memorabilia, like letters and albums and pictures. And so I was given the task to make collages out of these pieces and present them in a way and a memorial, like mural for him. And so the whole north end of the Artist Quarter is kind of dedicated to Bill Weisner. Yeah. And then in the basement by the Southside Market, I have a small bunny mural heading back to Opening Bell. And down on the other end, by the parking garage, I have a mural that's a lot of abstract geometric shapes with a jaguar in it and things like that.
So tell me this: the ram. Why the ram? What's the significance with the ram?
There really isn't one.
Okay.
I just I liked the image, so I used it.
Okay. That's cool. So how long have you? When did you decide to take art serious?
Well, I've been creating all of my life, and I knew that it was something that I was good at. I won a lot of art contests in elementary school, and even going into like junior high and high school, like the schools would have me like do murals for them in their offices and stuff. And paint our mascots on the walls, you know. Even when I had like a job at a restaurant, they were like, "Can you do our windows for Christmas?" And like people were just always asking me. Yeah. And I just, in my last year of college, I had a mentor that saw my work, and he ended up being the associate dean of the art department at North Texas. But him and his wife, she worked there too, they took me under their wing, and he was like, "I know you're almost done with a communication design degree, but I think you need to paint," because I took all of my electives as painting. And he's like, "And I'm going to show you how to make a living." And so he had started a class called Professional Practices for Studio Artists.
Oh, wow.
I was the only graphic designer in it, but the class and the textbook taught you how to make a living with art through public art projects, through your own shows, through gallery representation, how to put on your own shows, how to market your shows, like everything you'd have to do. That was actually our class project, was putting on a show together in the gallery at school. So I tried to get into galleries after that, and had, I could get into group shows here or there, but I just decided to put my own show on using my textbook, and almost, granted it was a lot of friends and family, but a lot of new people, but I almost sold out.
Oh, wow.
And that I just started parlaying.
Where was this again?
I went around looking for empty spaces, and it's no longer there, the Quadrangle in Uptown.
The Quadrangle. I heard of that. I'm not sure where it is, but I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's kind of Fairmont area. They're remaking it into something else right now, or redoing it. And there was just an empty space. I went in with a proposal, like, I want to do a show. I'll donate this much to charity and they let me use it for a couple weeks.
So you learned that salesman technique from your class?
Yeah. I mean, you don't get what you don't ask for.
And you don't get what you don't ask for.
Yeah. And I went around to several spaces and gave them proposals and was like, I want to have a show, and people want to support the arts usually. And if you're also donating it to charity and bringing people to their space, they're interested.
So tell me, have you ever taken a hiatus from doing art? Do you ever get burnt out? Have you ever gotten frustrated with work? Because as an artist, I know sometimes it's like, it's bittersweet sometimes. Mm-hmm. So do you have any of those stories?
Yeah, I think that a lot of creators go through the struggle, you know. And I was talking to this about a writer friend yesterday, because I got back in the studio month before last, and it took a good 2 weeks being in there all day to finally just hit on something that you feel fire. Yeah. I love that, of being excited, where you just like can't stop creating until you can't hold your eyes open.
Yeah.
And when you find something like that, even like I went somewhere for a couple of weeks. I came back and I walked in and I saw those paintings and it was just like my heart fluttered. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I go through periods where I don't feel that at all, or it's hard to like get on that wave and shift gears, you know, into like creative mode.
Yeah.
And I've definitely hit walls. I've definitely been burnt out. Like I've created and sold over 3,000 paintings in my career.
Oh,
and
wow.
some people
That's
don't make
amazing.
that in a lifetime, you know?
Yeah.
And when I started managing the Janette Kennedy Gallery, it kind of gave me a little bit of a break to not have to depend on my creativity for like every single thing in my life.
Yeah.
Where I didn't have to get in the studio because I needed to pay bills, you know, like, I mean, of course, there's some aspect of that, but not every single thing is riding on it.
I got it. Because I think sometimes when you're an artist and you have to create to make a living, and sometimes the frustration from everything that you have to pay and just all that you have going on in your life, and you feel like you're forced to create. And I don't. Do you have any moments like that, or do you have do you have a story or something like that happened, or?
Well, I also, that makes me think of the saying where like, oh, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
There's also the flip side of that, whereas if you make a living off of what was your hobby or you love to do, then it becomes work.
Yeah.
And you do have a different relationship with it because it's not, you can still get joy and like do it, but there's a lot more pressure on
Yeah.
it. And like I said, I really kind of needed the break when I started
Yeah.
managing the gallery. So I'm very thankful for that because I was getting burnt out and I just felt like I was going through the motions because I had to. And there's nothing better than getting in the studio feeling refreshed and excited and, you know, like bring it on, you know.
I got you. So here's something that I think about a lot. I think that just society, like there's a lot of people in society that respect the arts and things like that, but I think, how do I want to say this? Over time and as we move on in time, I think people are respecting the arts a lot more, but I still feel like artists are, like, we're responsible for a lot of culture shifting and influence. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to monetary exchange, it's like, okay, you'll pay a doctor, an attorney, an architect, or, you know, all these titles or whatever. But when it comes time to paying an artist, you're like, you know, like, mm-hmm. It's like, why should I pay for that? But it takes just as much time devoted to be an artist as it does to be any one of those other titles. Mm-hmm. And it's just not equally respected, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. I think there's definitely circumstances like that. I think that probably on a general level, people look at doctors and lawyers and think, oh my God, you paid tens of thousands of dollars and 8 years in college. And, you know, like there's a schooling and an education behind it. And there, you know, some artists are untrained. Some of them have academia behind them. But a lot of people also think that artists, like, it's fun. I would love to sit around and draw all day.
Yeah.
I would love to sit around and paint all day. So I'm doing you a favor by showing interest in, you know, your hobby or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I would tell people I'm an artist, they're like they immediately think, oh God, you know. But then other people that got to know me, they're like, no, this isn't a starving artist. Like people just have that mindset that artists are starving. They're like
charity.
Yeah, like bohemian, all of this. And I do think it should be more respected in that kind of sense. And like you look at urban development, and a lot of people want to bring artists in to bring culture and interest to areas. like a classic example is Soho, you know, and then all the artists move there because it's affordable. And then everybody wants to go live around the culture and the arts. And then it pushes all the artists out. Like you see that over and over again. And that's also something I love about Jack Matthews is that he backs it up. Like he loves the arts. He wants to bring it to this area. And then he really like takes care of the artists that are here, like helping to build his community. And so I think that's rare, and I think it's amazing, and we need more people like that.
I said architect, but I feel like an architect is it's a formal artist. But I just feel like artists. I mean, from the furniture that we sit in, the clothes we wear, from the logos, from the businesses, I mean, from production, from, you know, movies and film and where people spend their time, you know, it's just like, I just feel like we give culture a shape in different shapes, right? And I just feel like, I don't know, how do you think that, how can the respect level be gained, or is it just something like, how do you feel? Do you understand that question?
I do. I don't have an answer to it though.
Yeah, me either.
Because, you know, we do have museums where there's these huge, you know, cathedral-like buildings that are just dedicated to housing art.
Yeah.
And the cities usually take pride in their museums and their art districts. So, and Dallas has one of the largest art districts located downtown than any other city in the country. Yeah. And so I think that there is that aspect, but it is a very like limited group of people that get to be in those displays and those exhibitions and those collections. And it's like, that's what artists are striving for, right?
To enter in that art world, kind of like a pop artist, like the top 40 artists, to be on like a musician or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost I think the epitome of a fine art career is to be in museum collections. Yeah. And it's the interesting thing too to me is that landscape is changing drastically in the past 20 years with the internet, with people. It's same in music where people can self-publish, you're seeing these big pop stars come out that are video stars, you know, like YouTube stars, and you don't need record labels anymore, and you don't have to sign multi-level deals or, you know, record deals. You can create what you want without somebody nixing, you know, this or that when it might be your favorite song on the album. So I think we're also seeing that in fine art. People can self-publish, and there's a lot more avenues for people to get their work out there, and it's shaking up the gallery world. It's not.
So speaking of that, what do you think about print on demand, like having your art where people can download prints and things like that? Do you have any preference on prints and printing on demand? You know those sites where you can, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's a good avenue, especially for artists that want to make a living. It also depends.
Them that want to make a living.
I mean,
if you want to eat, I mean, you probably want to look into it.
You need to buy paint. And you do have to get creative in those kinds of ways. And, you know, there's different types of art careers. Like there are the people in museum collections. There are the people in high-end galleries that if your work shows up on an auction block and goes for less than a collector bought it 3 weeks ago, it's a big issue. Like that's a big problem. You can't just sign with a gallery and then go do print on demand or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so there's different like echelons or in the art world and what kind of career you want to have and what kind of artist you have. I think most people are not on that level, but create great work and just the same, and just don't use those avenues. I think that as long as you're producing a quality product, and if you are using a print on demand or things like that, just make sure that it's up to your standards. Maybe keep it, you know, if you want it to be limited editions and more like special, that's one thing. You can have open editions too. I'm kind of all for it because I want art to be accessible to people.
Yeah.
And just because someone can't afford a $5,000 or $6,000 painting doesn't mean they don't want a smaller print of it because they love it. Like I get the idea behind blue chip art, but I think it kind of like bastardizes the art making process.
Yeah.
And I think it should be accessible for all people to appreciate.
So for people that don't understand what blue chip art is, can you explain what blue chip art is?
Well, I mean, in my best words, I will. It's, it's the higher end work that a lot of people buy just because it has, it can retain or go up in value. So they use it as an investment purposes.
Well, art is an investment, right? Should be, can be.
I mean, that's not always the case. Like in my mind, I think people should buy work because they connect to it. But there's people that use it strictly for monetary and financial reasons and investments and trading. And I think now it's harder and harder for people to use it as like a tax, evasion or tax, haven kind of thing. Just, it used to be pretty significant thing back in the day for the really expensive works. And I never liked that. Like I think art should, like I said, be something you buy because you love it, because it came from someone's heart and soul. But there's also different art. Everybody creates different. Like you look at Andy Warhol that had the factory, and that was kind of the first mass producing thing that he, creating art where he had people working for him. And Jeff Koons does the same thing.
And Mr. Brainwash, are you familiar with Mr. Brainwash?
No, who's that?
Mr. Brainwash, he did there was a movie called, I think it's Exit the Gift Shop or something like that.
Oh, yes.
And
I watched that.
He did something like mass produce. He like sold a bunch of, he had a bunch of money that he invested into it, and he did just like what you and then it was a super success. And I mean, the world knows him now because of it. But the same approach.
Well, I watched that.
It was art equals commerce to the highest degree.
Yeah, and I watched that show, and he started out following around outsider art, and filming them, but then during that they're showing him what they do, how they do it, where their favorite spots are, and so he's learning all of this, and then doesn't make the film about them, but turns around and takes everything he learned from them and does exactly what they're doing, and so
as a business model,
he made millions of dollars that night. And there's something for me that's really poignant in that movie was, I feel like something like that happened to me in a way, where I had some people selling my work and we were doing really well. Well, I showed them everything I did, how I did it, what I used, because in my mind, I'm like, you can't come up with the stuff I come up with. Yeah. But they were the salespeople. And so guess what? They turned around and took everything that had taken me years and experimentation to do, took that and started doing their own stuff and cut me out. Well, this happened like right before that movie came out. And at the end of it, they're interviewing Bansky, and he was like, I used to like show people what I did. I didn't care. And he's like, I don't think I'm going to do that again. And I was
I remember that.
Right on, brother, right on.
Because everybody's like show people, and I think like I'm one of the type of people, I'll show you whatever, right? It doesn't matter. But the thing is that when you look at it like that, like how I don't know, I can understand that, but I mean, I just feel like there's so much in me, it doesn't really matter. I can give you this, and I still can pull and give more. So. Now that we're on that, how should an artist price their work? Because I recently had a showing in the gallery at the Janette Kennedy Gallery, and I was very modest on my pricing. Okay. No, but anyway, so how do you feel like people and artists should price their work, and how do you price your work? Because that's, because really when I think about I mean, it's really priceless. So before we go there, one of the things that I used to do because I've always painted like ever since I was out of high school, and I just paint and I'd put it on my wall. So I'd have people come over, and there were some people that would just come over, like you said, connected to your work. So, like, I mean, they come over, we talk, whatever we're doing, just hanging out or whatever, and they just keep going back to it. So, and they'd ask about it, and then I'll just, before they leave, I say, go take that, can you get that off the wall? I was like, what? Yeah, just take that home with you.
Oh,
because it connected with them, and then I'll just make something else to fill the space up. It just gives me a reason to, okay, well, let me go get something else and paint right there. So I did that a lot.
Nice.
From here in California. And I remember one time I was broke. I had all these paintings that I had on the wall, and it was off of Skillman and Belmont, right next to that fire station. And we had this trunk. Well, no, it wasn't a trunk. It was a hood of a car. I turned it around. I put art sale, and I just took my art and put it outside. And somebody came, and I had painted these eyes. It was something I did in high school.
Yeah.
And this was 20-something years ago. So a lady came and her daughter, and she said, how much for this? And I was like, $60, $65, whatever I told her. I don't remember the price, but I didn't have any money. So she came and bought that. I took my art back, put it back on the walls, and I had some money. So I would never price anything like that again. But it was just, I see art in commerce, and I priced that, like going back to pricing, it was just like, I didn't have any gas money. I didn't have any bread. You know what I mean? So it was just like, okay, it was almost like, oh, what do you think? What do you, like,
what's it worth?
You want to trade for it? You know what? Trade for some gas. And, but anyway, so I've never done that again, but I just thought that was interesting. But that's when I realized, because that was the first time that I showed my work.
Yeah.
like a garage sale. That was the first time I showed my work. It was so now back to pricing. So how do you feel about like pricing work? And I know it's different for everybody.
It is.
But how do you feel about it, and how do you price?
Well, just to comment on your story, that's also how MC Hammer started out. Selling his CDs out of
his
trunk.
I mean, it was literally necessity. I was broke, like busted and disgusted, just whatever. But then when I had the money, it was affirming, and it made me feel real good. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
People like this stuff. And they bought, and it was older stuff. So I was like, this stuff I did in high school. Mm-hmm. Right? And it was like, okay.
Yeah. And I think also like people want to stumble across something that interests them and, they connect with. I love that story. And I think that most artists have been at that point in their career. And I know I've been there. I've had ups and downs. And one of my art teachers said, you're not an artist until you're wondering if you should buy food or paint with like the last bit of your money. And I was like, never. Like I would always buy food. And then like at some point in my career, I had just a small amount of money, and I was like, but I really need some titanium white, like I'll just split it, and I'm like, oh, I'm there. I've arrived. But pricing is a very personal thing. I think that one of the keys an artist should think about when pricing their work is
how much is their light bill, and do they really want to pay it this month?
That's not what I was going to say.
I'm joking.
But that you really shouldn't, or I advise against going down on your work unless you have studio sales, and I would also advise that very infrequently because it is a necessity to keep creating work, to make space, to generate income, to keep your studio, things like that. But if people are looking at your work thinking that your career is going to escalate and things like that, in their mind, they are kind of thinking this could be an investment. Yeah. And they don't want to see, you paid $1,000 for this, and then they walk in and you're like, guess what? It's now this same size painting is, half that. Like, people want to see their work maintain its value and go up. And so when artists are pricing their work, in my mind, I think they should keep that in mind. And so I went up very slowly on my work and my pricing. I started at a certain price point at my quadrangle show. But as I kept selling and demand was getting more and I couldn't keep up, I'm like, okay, like, I'm spending all my time painting. I can't keep it on the walls. I'm going to go up to the next price point and then see how that goes. Because you don't want to price yourself out of making a living.
Yeah.
You want to keep it.
But there's a fine line. There's a fine line because it's like, if you price too low, then you don't have the respect of people who really have the money to purchase it because they don't want to buy cheap art, right? Like cheap art, inexpensive or whatever. They would want something like, I guess, a deal, but like not cheap art. And sometimes you can price your work to where it's like somebody that would invest in art would not invest in that just for the price, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably should be less of a concern.
Yeah.
Personally, but I'm sure it's happened. I would just consider what your time is valued at and how dependent you are on sales.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more freedom if you have benefactors or things in place where you're not, like I said, depending on it for everything.
Yeah. I just feel like because I've given so much work away, and I'm like, I just don't want to give it away anymore. Like, I want people to I'd rather say, okay, I'll work with you on the payments or something like that than just because if I'm gonna lower it and lower it and lower it, I'd rather just give it to you.
Yeah.
I'd rather just here you go. This is yours. You can have it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can price yourself out. And right now in my life, fortunate enough, I don't depend on my art to make my, I don't depend on my paintings and sculptures to make my living, but I do depend on my art because everything I do is like part of my artistic self,
Creative
whatever. But I don't know. But pricing is a little different.
It is different.
And everybody has an opinion about it.
I'm sure they do.
No, everybody has an opinion about it. Whether it's too high, oh, that's too low. Or that's, that's just right, man. You don't give it away,
Yeah.
But everybody has an opinion about
They
it. Either way. If you price it too high, if you price it too low, whatever. Everybody has an opinion. That's one thing that I've noticed with people. They're like, oh, wow. I can't. They said one of the comments said, Walter, ooh, I really like this piece, but I'd have to sell my kidney to. But anyway, so I just when I was pricing my art at the last show, it was really I have to get these things printed because I need to have these on the wall. With the titles and pricing and thing like that. So when I was doing it, I was like, okay, well, I'm not giving it away. So I was just literally just throwing numbers out there.
Yeah.
I actually had one of those. I actually had one painting. It's like I put like $111,000.
Is that the guy that's like, I have to sell a kidney for this?
But I ended up not doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, just a third of that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what it's worth to you.
Yeah.
Like like I said, it's a very personal thing.
Because and for me, I like when I did that show, it was more of like I come from music, so it's kind of like when you produce a whole record. Like back in the days when you used to play music and you listen to one song and you go all the way through that album before you put another song on it. It's not like where you just randomly select songs like with MP3s and stuff on iTunes. It was like you listen to the whole record. So for me, my art was like when you go there, this is the whole record that I produced for this particular series or whatever. And I wanted people to experience that whole that vibe, right? And I wanted to take that record and share it like all over, right? So it wasn't really about selling all these pieces other than like finding other places to play this record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. And I think that when you're going to try and get gallery shows, that's why artists need to have a body of work. So people and that want to exhibit your work can like see it in context with all your other pieces. And it does tell a story. Yeah. It does like create a narrative of your, you know, your creativity, like what you're producing, what you're trying to say to people, things like that. And also like going back to pricing, for me, I have a lot of people do it by square inch. And they put a number on a square inch and a size. I have a price range for sizes, and where it falls and how I feel about it is where it falls in that price range. So it's never too far off. I have had pieces that I absolutely loved and is like, oh, just let go of these. But I put it like outside, like a little bit higher, like you're saying, the things that you're endeared to. So there's that. And there's also, like for me, I started an abstract series that is more gallery oriented. And so that series is like more expensive than me just switching gears from like my animal paintings into this. And so because I don't want to lose the people, I still enjoy making animal paintings, and I don't want to lose the people in that group that are interested in it. They're at a good price point where most people can afford it. The abstract work is more expensive. It's a different group of people that are going to want that. And so I think that's a good also avenue for artists to explore other ideas that they have without like losing their base.
So I've been a little bit traumatized. The last art show I did was like 1999, early 2000. Well, no. That wasn't the last art show. That was the last art that I had. Well, that's when I got traumatized. I moved to California. I got a phone call. Walter, you sold out. And I'm like, I kept calling. I'm like, okay, where? Okay. Like, nobody. I'm like, okay, what? So they sent me a check probably about 3 to 4 months later for like $300. I'm like, okay. So I was like, anyways. So... There you go. You get it, right? So what's new? What are you doing next? Where can people see your work?
Wait. Okay. So did they have the wrong prices on your work?
I have to pray about it to this day. I have no idea, but it was like and this is also when I came back from Cali, and I'm not going to mention anybody. I came back from Cali. I had a painting at this place, and I was like, where's this painting? And the dude told me, well, he needed something to paint on, and he painted over it. So there you go.
I think that there's a lot of nightmare stories for artists that are dealing with people selling their work and not getting paid when their paintings sell or they go missing or things like that. That's why I think it's important for artists to take any of that seriously, to have a list of inventory, to have a contract in place so you at least have some, like they have an accountability and you have avenues to pursue, you know, to get your paintings or your money. And like you're saying, a lot of people earlier, going back to don't appreciate artists, they're taken advantage of probably more than any other group of people. Because,
and that's why it was such a large topic of the conversation.
Yeah. Could you repeat the last question?
Okay. So where, like, you have a new body of work that you're doing that you're going to be showing, and where can people see your work?
Well, I'm currently building up a new body of work. I had a studio sale, my very first studio sale last summer, to make some space and create some, you know, money to put back into my art. And I don't have a place as of yet where I'm showing it, but I'll keep you posted. You can always go to my website at www.jennifermorgan.net.
The world famous Jennifer Morgan. So is there anything I didn't ask that you want to talk about? Because I kind of went in on a couple of tangents.
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Go ahead.
I think that when you are pursuing your passion and you're out there talking to people and being proactive about it, that's when things happen. And I do think that there is such thing as like a global consciousness or an energy that works around efforts. You know, like for example, when you had your show and it just so happened that there was a certain set of circumstances where there was something available and you had a huge body of work that you'd been working on for 20 years. And that would have never happened if you didn't come to Cedars Open Studios. You didn't talk to me about it right then and there. And it just happened like that.
Yeah.
There is multiple occasions where I have approached people and they were just talking about something like that the week before. And two examples of that are that I would show in different places. Okay, because in my art marketing book in college, at that time, this is over 20 years ago, it said that only 17% of people had been in an art gallery.
17%.
This is 20-something years ago. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to target the other 83%. So I'm going to go to the people. So I started showing at coffee shops, salons, boutiques, furniture stores. I was just like, I'm just going to make a body of work, get it somewhere, get back in the studio, make another body of work, put it somewhere else. And early on, people were just like, I see your work everywhere I go. And it's like, that's what I want. And it really paid off for me.
So you think that's a good strategy?
Well, it was for me. And like I said, it depends on what kind of art career you're trying to have.
Continue to go on.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of art career you're trying to have. And so I showed at a salon, Richard Haler's salon, over off of like Preston, Northwest Highway. And, for a couple years, and then several years later, I went in Neiman Marcus downtown, and he had gotten both of the salons in Neiman's downtown in North Park. And I was like, oh, I wonder if they're still showing art, because this would be such a great spot. And so I called them, and the manager, or the guy that answered the phone, I asked if the manager was still there that was there before. And he was like, yeah, can I tell her who's calling? And I was like, Jennifer Morgan. He's like, oh, did she call you? I said, no. He's like, she didn't call you? Why are you calling? And I was like, because I saw you guys are in Neiman's. I was going to see if you wanted to show my work. He sat there like this long pause. He's like, she didn't call you? And I was like, no. He said, we had a meeting this morning about getting your work, asking you to show your work here again. And I was like, are you serious? Like, that is crazy. There was another instance like that. Oh, also that turned out to be such a good avenue because I got North Park and downtown store. And you have this group of usually women with expendable income sitting for hours getting their hair done and colored. And I would just change all the work out every 3 or 4 months. And they didn't take a commission either.
North Park, North Park is like a big. I mean, it's like an artist mall anyway, with the sculptures and everything.
Yeah,
the Nashers own that, right?
Yeah. But
and plus Neiman Marcus, man, they have a lot of cool art in there.
Yeah, they're big art collectors too, and that also parlayed into, the VP of marketing seeing my work, inviting me to do. They did a fundraiser for like their anniversary, a big anniversary, where they turned the window of the shoe department on Main Street into an artist studio. Mm-hmm. And it was maybe they're like 98th or something, but they wanted to have like 98 artists come in 3-hour increments and create work in the studio.
98 artists? Wow.
They did it over the course of like a month. And then they put all the work in the shoe department, auctioned it off for like juvenile diabetes research. And they were having trouble finding artists that could create work in 3 hours. But they set up all these cafe tables out on the sidewalk downtown, and so people could just come by and sit and watch people create. Oh, wow. And I ended up creating 4 pieces for that. And then they turned around and commissioned 8 more for like a project. And then they commissioned 4 more pieces for like the Art of Italian style promotion that they reproduced and, put in a lot of their stores in the country. And so
That's right.
something, all of that turned into that from me just calling the salon that I used to, show at.
Yeah. So showing up and like putting it out and materializing what's in here, out here through action.
Yeah. And like I said, asking for it, going back to, the artist stereotype, a lot of artists, the flaky artist is a stereotype. So when you show up and you represent and you do what you say you're going to do and you do it well, people will ask you to come back.
Yeah.
And just one more example of that is I thought, it'd be cool to have a show. And we had a lot of buildings going up at once, 15 years ago, 20 years ago in the Uptown area. And I thought, I'd love to have a show in one of these empty units and like invite people to one of these cool buildings. And so it was 1999 McKinney. And I found the leasing number. I called them and I was like, hey, I was wondering if you guys want to have a show, you could open your units. I'll invite my list. You invite, your list. And they said, we just, same thing. We had a meeting about this last week about like bringing an artist in and having an art show to like advertise some of our open units. And I was like, great, let's do it. So
wow.
It's like, I just saw things like that happening a lot when I would get ideas and follow up and just ask. And
it's like it comes to you. And then you do something about it.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people that they don't trust what comes to them.
Yeah.
So it stays here and it never materializes. So they never see the fruit of what this is supposed to produce.
Yeah. And I think that like having the courage and
there you go. That's the word, because a lot of people don't have the courage to trust and do something about it. But finish.
Yeah. Having the courage to approach someone, the worst thing that can happen is no, and you walk out.
Yeah.
The best thing that it can happen is...
It changes your life.
Look at the Neiman Marcus thing. Or I walked in a furniture boutique on McKinney and showed them, this is before iPads, I had a picture book of my work. And, they ended up selling 1,700 pieces for me over the course of 7 years.
1,700
Gave me a whole section of their store as the Jennifer Morgan Gallery. And so, all that happened because I walked in and I was like, you guys need art on the walls. And, try this. And they're like, we'll try it. Like, bring us like 3 pieces. We'll see how it goes. And so I did that the next day. And at the end of the day, he's like, I sold all 3. Could you bring me everything you have? I was like, yes.
You want to hear my story?
Yes.
You just had me think about the story.
Okay, bring it.
I donated some work. Well, not donated. I had some work at this one store. And I'm not going to tell you where it is. It's not there anymore. But I donated work. And so then I go there. Couple of times, I'm like, okay, it's still here. No one called and hadn't sold it. Then I go there again, and the store's closed. I see my art and stuff up, but I couldn't get a hold of anybody. They had walked away from the store. So long story short, before I can go back, the store is closed. My art is gone. I don't know where it is. Everything is just gone from the store. So it was
And you just lost it?
I just lost the art. It was just crazy.
I feel like that's happened to me a couple of times.
The whole store is closed down.
Things just disappeared.
Yeah. But I'm not, that wasn't traumatized. It was just like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we won't do that anymore.
Yeah. And
it's just like 2 pieces.
Yeah.
Small pieces. But
Well, and
it was
that's why
still, yeah.
I think that anytime you leave pieces somewhere, you need a contract in place so you have a means to go after what's rightfully yours.
This was probably like 19 or 20-year-old me.
Yeah. I mean, we all have to learn those lessons the hard way. Yeah. I think another avenue, and some people are against this, but is donating for charity events. I know you said you don't want to give your work away.
No. I've donated for charity events.
Yeah.
Like, I probably donated like 15 or 20 pieces for charity events. The problem is that they keep coming back for more and more and more and more and more. And then when you're not producing more and more and more, it's just like, it's like all your work is just, you're like going, it's just going out. And it's not like, I I can't even think of anything that I've done that has come back.
Okay.
Like, and that sounds bad, but it's like that I can see. So I don't mind donating work like that, but
Well,
there has to be some kind of exchange, not just take, or just give. It has to be whatever the exchange is, right?
yeah, and I think that you probably
Not necessarily money or anything, just what is.
Yeah, and I know for me, like that's my way of giving back. Like I necessarily can't sit down and like write down checks to places that I want to support. And so I'll let other people write out the checks and just stick with what like I'm good at.
Yeah.
And sometimes things come out of it. I choose things that I want to donate to, regardless of if it sells or turns into anything.
Yeah.
But I have had art auction pieces. Then people turn around and see it and buy more of my work. I sold a piece at an auction once to an interior designer, and then she turned around and commissioned 12 huge paintings for a restaurant, and it all came from one auction piece, and she would have never seen my work. A lot of people have mixed opinions about art, the charitable donations and art auctions.
I think people should donate. I just think that sometimes, depending on where you donate to, like there's givers and takers in this world. Mm-hmm. And some people, like if you're a natural giver, then you got some natural takers that will keep on taking.
Yep.
That's all I'm talking about.
Boundaries are a big thing. You got to create boundaries in that world and in your personal world, because, you have to create the time and the energy to keep creating. And if you have energy vampires in your life, you've got to just like make that box your safe box.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Jennifer Morgan, the world famous Jennifer Morgan. So, anything else? You have anything else that you want to share?
Well,
we have time.
Okay. I just think that I'd like to encourage people, like I said earlier, something about courage, is creativity does take courage, because you are making yourself vulnerable. You're taking what's in here and you're putting it out into the world. And that's really, really scary for a lot of people.
It's Judgment Day.
Well, it is. Like people do. They have, like you're saying, even with prices, like people come up and they're like, that's too much. That's too little. I've had people look at my work and you're like, what the F is this? This looks like a devil. And it's like, what? Okay. Mm-hmm. I had someone tell me, who it was? This is so crazy. So after that apartment, the high-rise show or whatever, one of my friends had an after party for me at her house. And so some of the people from that show like went to her house. I didn't know everybody there. And at the end of the night, there was this guy sitting on the couch and he's like, hey, I was at your art show. Can I talk to you about your art? And I was like, sure. And I sat down and he was like, first of all, do you know who I am? And I was like, I don't. And he goes, okay. Well, I think that all the figures in your work look like Holocaust victims. Like, what's wrong with you? They all look like they're starving. And I was just like, okay. Well, that's interesting that you see that. They look like they're starving. Yeah. He had all of these kind of harsh opinions. And I was like, that's interesting. But to me, that speaks more about him than where I was coming from with my work. Well, I was like, so who are you? Like before he left. And it was right in the middle of like the Enron stuff. And it was Jeff Skilling.
Is that the CEO? Is that the one that killed himself?
Oh, no, I think that was Ken.
I don't know. Don't get me.
I think he's the one that went to prison. He didn't, at the time, didn't. But he was in that big Enron scandal. Wow. And he was like awaiting trial or something, and he ended up at my art show. And then
while he was waiting the trial, so he was bitter.
And I was like, "Oh, no wonder that's what you're seeing." And I was just so so bizarre. And my friend ended up, because he was the last person there and he wouldn't leave, and my friend ended up having to kick him out. And he just started stumbling down the street, and then he came back. He's like, "Can someone call me a cab?" And so, this before Uber, we called him a cab. And after he left, I was like, "Do you know who that was? You know who you just kicked out of my friend's house?" He was like, "Who?" And I told him, and he was like, "Oh man!" So then we just had this joke that you kicked Jeff Skilling out of a party.
I'll have to look him up. Jeff Skilling. Okay.
Yeah, he's rotten.
Okay.
There's a movie about it called The Smartest Guys in the Room. He's rotten, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you heard it here first.
Fun and interesting stories.
So come on down to the Southside and check out this beautiful lady's art. And
can I promote the show in the gallery?
Promote the show in the gallery.
So this Friday on May 3rd, Ruben Cheatham is having an exhibition called Healed. He has recovered from stage 3 colon cancer, and this is the next chapter in his life of being his new sense of being and his new grasp on life. The opening is May 3rd from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. There'll be drinks, light bites, and music by Indolina. It's a DJ duo, so come hang out with us. His show runs April 29th to May 29th. The gallery is open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, so stop in anytime and check it out. And we are located in the Southside building, 1409 Botham Jean Boulevard, in the Artist Quarter, number 105.
Right on. So thank you for coming and being a part of the show.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
This is a pleasure.
So how was it? Was it easy? Simple?
Yeah, I think it was easy. I'm probably
So I got one more question to ask. How much money do you make? No, I'm joking. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Southside 457 podcast. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Soon.
Southside 457.